A famous person is interviewing me to be their director of growth. The problem is, I don't know who it is or what their company is. Last week, my friend Casey laid down a challenge. He said, can you get any marketing job at any company, even if you don't know what company it is, while you're in the interview? So I'm taking the challenge. Casey gave a real job posting to ChatGPT and asked it to act like the owner of the company and interview me for the job without revealing who they are. My goals are simple. 1, figure out who I'm talking to. 2, get the job. So I need you to comment below after you watch the video whether I got the job or not. This is the checkout where we talk about how to get attention and convert it into sales. Let's get into it. So its first question is, good afternoon. I'm going to skip the usual resume warm-up. You saw the brief. Director of Growth. Before I tell you anything else about the company, I want to know how you think. What are the first 3 questions you'd ask me? I don't think I would ask you 3 questions at once. I'd like to just ask you 1 question, and then I'd like to reserve my other 2 questions for follow-ups to that question. First question I want to ask you is, how do you define growth? If growth is the role, I think a very clear definition of what you mean when you say growth is important. So obviously no hints here. I don't know who this is, but I think that this is a key thing. Like anytime I'm interviewing for a job or anytime I am asking or anytime I'm like pitching somebody doing a sales pitch, I almost always try to establish early that I'm not going to enter their frame. Right. So if they say, what are the first 3 questions you'd ask me? I am almost certainly not going to ask them 3 questions. And the reason is this is going to be like a high level role, right? I know this is a famous person. This is a famous company. Director of Growth is going to be a pretty high level role. There's going to be a lot of really good interviewers. And the main thing that I want to do in a job interview isn't necessarily say what they want to hear, rather to be memorable. So I want them to instantly remember like, oh yeah, like that's the guy who wouldn't do the thing we ask him to. He thinks for a second. I like that ChatGPT is narrating what he's doing. He thinks for a second. For us, growth is not a single metric. If all I cared about was raw audience size, there are plenty of ways to inflate that number. What I'm interested in is expanding our reach, deepening audience engagement, increasing the number of people who actively choose us, and reducing our dependence on any single platform, product, or individual. Let me turn that around. What metrics would you watch most closely to determine whether that growth was actually healthy? The metrics I would watch most closely based on what you've given me are going to depend on the platform or how we make money. So can you give me a little bit of a breakdown of how the company makes money? I assume that you don't necessarily just want me to grow the audience, but you want me to make money for you. If that assumption's incorrect, please tell me and I can kind of rejig my answer, I suppose. So again, really establishing like, I'm not going to enter his frame. I'm not going to say, like, I'm not saying, oh, for audience expanding our reach, I would look at views. I don't know what platform we're talking about, right? Like, he's not giving me enough detail. So I'm basically going to push back and say, like, you've not defined the question clearly enough, right? It might feel like really confrontational if you've been in job interviews. But again, like, I think this is sort of how I am going to approach things. Like, I am not going to give answers like everyone else would give. My first job is to be memorable. When they're going and they're talking later about who they liked, they definitely won't forget me. They might not have liked me, but they won't forget me. So that's my first job in an interview is don't be forgettable. Looks like he's still thinking. Takes a long time to think, this famous person. He leans forward, but I'm not going to answer your question directly yet, partly because I want to see whether you can operate under ambiguity, and partly because in this role, you're not always going to get perfect information before making decisions. So let's say this. The company began in one area. Today, it generates revenue from multiple areas. Some are audience-driven, some are product-driven, some are partnership-driven. It generates revenue from multiple areas. Can you define area? Do you mean a geographical area, or do you mean like an area of the business? I'm not sure what you're talking about. So that's just a ChatGPT, like a human would never answer that way. I'm not going to answer your question, but it's also trying not to reveal itself to me. In the real interview, the human would not be trying not to reveal themselves to me. It wouldn't be like a Wizard of Oz situation where they're the man behind the curtain. So the ChatGPT is kind of doing 2 things where it's like trying to conduct this interview, but also like trying not to give me information that would allow me to know who they are. I was being intentionally vague. I meant an area of the business, not geography. So to clarify, you have revenue streams that are audience driven. I assume that you mean by that you make revenue from advertisers, like you have entertainment content and people advertise on that entertainment content and you make money from that. You have some that are product driven. So you also have some of your own products that you sell to your audience and some that are partnership driven. meaning you have like some sort of strategic partnerships with maybe other companies where they pay you to either make media for them or host their media or something like that. Is that like more or less an accurate assumption? So again, I'm not necessarily like, I'm not going to enter a frame where I'm going to try and answer a question that is not a clear question, but I'm going to do everything I can to force clear questions, right? So I asked him, so just so I understand your revenue streams, I assume it's basically like audience-driven, product-driven, partnership-driven. I said that already. You got it. You heard it before. He nods. As a working assumption, yes, close enough. Not perfectly precise, but close enough for the purpose of this conversation. We have audiences, we have products, we have partnerships, and importantly, those three things influence one another. So I'm just going to use this here. I'm going to use a technique called mirroring. This is from Never Split the Difference. It's a very good book by a very good author. Chris Voss is his name. This is just a mirroring technique, right? So pick the most important 1 to 3 words from their last sentence and just say those words with a question mark, right? So he said, most importantly, those 3 things influence each other. Remember, I'm trying to get a clear question out of this person who's trying to be intentionally vague. So now I'm just going to use a mirroring technique to say influence, like I'm curious, right? It's a very non-confrontational way to say, what do you mean by that? Because people find the question, what do you mean by that, to be confrontational. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I do think ChatGPT has really gotten in the rhythm of like, it's just trying to dance around in circles to not really ask me anything clear at all. Which is a little bit of the struggle of using AI to try and emulate a person. Like this would never be how the interview would go. But I don't know. It's trying not, it is taking the assignment seriously of trying not to tell me who it is. So I appreciate that, chat. Long response. Okay. Dude, I just love, he stands and walks over to a whiteboard. The crazy thing is, it's saying he stands and walks over to, I don't know if chat generated the image that he's going to draw on the whiteboard, but I think it's hilarious to then describe in words an image when you are an AI tool that has image generation capabilities. Like he stands and walks over to the whiteboard and it could say, and he draws this and just give me an image. But then it's like, now I'm going to use words to describe what he's drawn. Let's say company A has 500 million people who watch occasionally. Company B has 50 million people who actually care. Those are very different assets. The question becomes, what can each company persuade people to do? Can they try a new product, download an app, attend an event, recommend the brand, watch a new series, follow a new platform, buy merchandise, tell a friend? He turns back. That's why I'm interested in your answer. You jump straight past audience size and toward influence. A lot of growth people never do. They think growth is traffic. Sometimes growth is leverage. He sits back down. So let's follow that thread. How would you measure influence? Not views, not followers, not impressions. What would convince you that a company has genuine influence over its audience? Oh yeah, okay. That is actually like a much more clear question, which is what I was trying to get out of the interviewer. Okay.
All right, let's talk AI tools, but with email. There's a lot of AI tools out there. Every single platform is telling you, hey, we rolled out an AI tool, which is awesome, but sometimes it can mean nothing. So one of the things I love about working with Attentive is not only do they present AI tools and let you know when they're available, but for us, they walk you through them. You get to do a trial. You get to see if it's even working before you sign up. And at the end of the day, it almost feels like there's no added cost to adding these tools. That might sound crazy, but I just added AI Pro, AI Grow, AI Audiences, AI Send Time, and all these AI enhancements to my Attentive stack. And it's been incredible. Like we use Attentive. I'm not just writing for Attentive because we use it. There's other platforms out there, but these tools are insane. AI Grow, it's enhancing your pop-up to get more signups, more emails, and more people to just join the community in a better way. So you're using AI Grow to A/B test how people are showing up on your site. How are they interacting with your pop-up? And so many other things. So I know we're in a mad world of AI everything right now, but I like to just be as lean as possible with all these things. So just strip it away and look at what matters: email, ads, revenue, community, audiences, all those things, your website. Don't overcomplicate things. And so Attentive has just been great at that specifically. So if you haven't yet, get Attentive because it's awesome. email and SMS in just one place. And then check out their AI tools. You don't have to just jump in, get a 60-day trial or whatever trial they offer you. They'll prove out that they work. From there, have fun.
If you're tired of optimizing your business for vanity metrics like revenue, and you want to start tracking the actual profit of your business, then you need IntelliGems. If you're only testing to improve the conversion rate on your website, and that's all you care about, then you're probably losing money, because the only metric that actually matters is a metric called GPPV, gross profit per visitor. Remember it, put it in your brain, stick it in there, GPPV. Here's my point. You could double your conversion rate tomorrow. You could probably triple your conversion rate tomorrow. All you have to do is just give all your products away for free. Give all your products away for a loss. You pay $5 for the widget, sell it for $3. I bet you freaking 10x your conversion rate, but you'll also go bankrupt. You won't make any money doing this. So the truth is, you can have a worse conversion rate, but make more money. Here's an example. A brand I consult with ran a test where we raised our free shipping threshold. All right. So free shipping threshold used to be at $50. Somebody spends $50, they get free shipping. We raised it to like $75. Now they have to spend $75 to get free shipping. So the conversion rate dropped, as you might imagine. Fewer people purchased, but the people who did buy added more items to their cart, and they hit the new threshold. So their average order value increased, and the total profit went up, even though the conversion rate on the site went down. So if we were only looking at conversion rate, we would have called it a failed test. But if you use a tool like IntelliGems, like we were, that tracks the bottom line profit of every test. And that's all you should care about here, because more profit is more fuel to grow the brand. If you're not running tests like this, you should be, and you should be doing it with IntelliGems. So go to intelligems.io to start testing what actually moves the needle for your brand. Okay, let's get back to the show. I'm going to be honest, have no idea who this is. ChatGPT is doing a very good job of not giving me any information to help me know who it is. So I don't know if company A and B or C have anything to do with your company, but I can answer your question. What would convince me that a company has genuine influence over its audience? They're basically anything closer to the bottom line of their wallet, right? So the bigger the commitment from a person, the more influence you have over them. If they're willing to commit money to you, then that's a larger degree of influence over them than you have if they're just willing to give you 20 minutes of their time to watch some content, right? If they're willing to commit a large amount of money to you and do so repeatedly, that's an even larger amount of influence. If they're willing to attend an event, they're giving you their time, which is like unto money. So that's a large amount of influence compared to, a smaller amount of influence would again be watching a piece of content. If they're willing to both pay for travel to, they're willing to pay for travel to and attend an event, that would be probably the biggest barometer for the deepest level of influence that you would have over somebody. And then the price of that event would probably be another barometer. That's just a real marketing answer. The deeper the level somebody is willing to, the deeper you commit, you show me your calendar and show me your wallet, and I will show you what matters to you. That is true of all humans. And that's something like if you're a marketer or if you own a brand, if you do any kind of marketing, something to remember. What people spend their time on, what people spend their money on, that's what's important to them, right? A lot of people waste money on things that they don't actually think are important. But I would kind of counter that and say, actually that is important to them. They are showing through their actions that that's important to them. Now, they could have really great intentions. Humans can have great intentions, and that's usually where they're working from. Their self-image is more from a place of intention. So oftentimes they will spend money on things that they say are not necessarily important to them, and things that are junk, right? But the only observable we have is actions, right? So I'm not in the business of trying to judge somebody's intentions. That's God's job. That's not my job, all right? Looks like our mystery interviewer responded. And at this point, I am starting to think that ChatGPT is going to do an incredible job of not revealing themselves to me. And that this interview is essentially going to be not realistic because of that. But let's continue. I agree with most of that, though I'd make one distinction. Not every dollar is equal. Some people can be convinced to buy something once. That's marketing. The harder question is, would they follow you somewhere new? He leans forward. Let's say tomorrow we launched a completely different product, different category, different business, different team. Would people give it a chance because they trust us, or would we be starting from zero? That's the kind of influence that interests me, he pauses. And your event example is interesting because I agree. Getting someone to watch a video is one thing. Getting them to leave their house is another. Getting them to spend money is another. Getting them to travel is another. Small grin. I like the stage directions, ChatGPT. I'm going to keep telling Chat, give me more stage direction. Less words, more stage direction. We've spent a lot of time discussing those distinctions internally. Let me give you a little more context. The company originally became known for content. Today, leadership spends significantly more time thinking about products, brands, partnerships, and long-term business building than they did 5 years ago. In fact, one concern I have personally is that people still think of us primarily as a content company. Concern? Again, I'm going to mirror. So a concern, why is that a concern? I could ask the question, why does that concern you? That's a pretty non-combative question. Why questions are not very combative questions. But I like to get in the habit of mirroring whenever I can. So why does that concern you? The more words you use, the more context you put into the question, right? So if you use extra words, this is just me spitballing in real time. I think I just have thought of this in real time. Could be no research behind this. I could be talking out my butt right now. But the more words you use, the more time you spend speaking, the more opportunity you have to put your own tonality and emphasis onto the words and give the question extra context. So if I can, and this is partially like a self-controlling mechanism because I know I overspeak, if I can, I try and use the mirroring technique when I want to ask something like, what does that mean? How do I do that? Or, what do you mean by that? Or why does that concern you? If I want to ask like a what, how, or why question. Yeah, concern. Maybe concern is too strong of a word. Let's call it tension. Every company eventually gets trapped by the thing that made it successful, he shrugs. That's a real challenge because sometimes your biggest asset becomes your biggest constraint. He points at the candidate, which I guess is me. He points at the candidate. So let me ask you this. Imagine you inherited a company where 90% of public perception was tied to one thing, but leadership wanted to become 10 different things. How would you know whether the audience was ready to come along for the ride? My first instinct is actually to reject the premise that a company that is known for one thing should become 10 different things. I think you would have to convince me that that should be the case. Now, of course, if you are saying like that is the situation here, and if we hire you here, we're not going to convince you, you're just going to step into that, then I can answer the question. I don't really think of audience portability in terms of like, will they buy anything that we do? I think that's the dream. And I think that, because you have some level of notoriety, I think that's how you probably think of audience portability. You think, if I put out a water bottle, would they buy it? If I put out an investment course, would they buy it? If I put on a concert, would they come and would they buy it? Right? Like audience portability isn't portability across literally anything you could possibly sell. I think you have to think about the audience relevance. So if you've built a mass entertainment audience, you're most likely going to sell mass consumer products to them. Right? So entertainment events and consumer products, not necessarily like, courses or business products or things like that. Right? So I think, without you, while you're still trying to remain ambiguous, I think that I don't know that I can like get on board with your premise here. I'm going to edit that because I started talking to you, the YouTube audience, while I was responding there. So I think without you, while you're still trying to remain... Now, look, now that I'm editing, I do actually want to change the end of that answer. But again, I'm pretending this is an interview in real time. That's what I would have said. So we'll see how that rides. We got to ride with it. I'm going to add one more thing here. In other words, I don't necessarily think about audience portability as much as I think about audience relevancy if I want to open new lines of business and sell new things to the same people. However, I also have the question of, is that growth? Are you looking for me to grow the audience, or are you looking for me to grow the lines of business or the different things that we can sell to the audience? Are you looking for me to grow products? So let's see, who could this be? We're talking media company. We do have some hints here. Every company eventually gets trapped by the thing that made it successful. Now, here's the thing. I also wonder if ChatGPT is doing a good job of impersonating how this person would actually talk and how this person would actually act. Because if this is somebody famous and they have a media company, there's a good chance I probably know who they are. There's a good chance I've probably seen some like interviews with them. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not. But like, I think I need to start asking questions about like what channels they grow their audience on. Like what is the core growth mechanism that gets them more audience, which is what I led into with that last thing. I said like, are you asking me how you want me to grow audience or how to grow product, right? And so if they respond to that, basically because I know I'm sort of playing ChatGPT a little bit here, which isn't how I would play it in the actual interview. But if somebody were kind of being wily and like trying to be vague, basically like I would try and step them to the conversation that I want to have, right? And so if the conversation that I want to have is around audience growth, then I would be like, let me be clear. Are you saying that you want me to grow audience or you want me to grow lines of business or products, right? Or lines of revenue? He leans back. Let's test your theory. Over the last several years, we've launched products that on paper had very little reason to succeed, yet some have, others haven't. And what's interesting is that the audience didn't evaluate those products in isolation. They evaluated whether they trusted us, not the product category. Us, he pauses. A few years ago, if I'd told people we'd be discussing consumer packaged goods as a meaningful part of the business, they would have laughed. If I told them we'd be discussing major streaming platforms, they would have laughed. If I told them we'd be discussing live experiences, licensing opportunities, international versions of our content, and potentially entirely new categories of the business, they would have laughed. Okay, this could be the MrBeast company, though Chat is not doing a good job of acting like MrBeast if it is. And that's on Chat because there is a lot of public MrBeast content about how he acts. So I'm going to get a little cheeky here. Again, job is to be memorable. Okay, in that case, if your audience will buy anything that you'll sell them, just sell them the most expensive possible thing that you can with the highest margins. So sell them like a house or a $50,000 or $100,000 investment opportunity or a $200,000 course. Just sell them that. Job done. I don't know why you actually need a head of growth. So I'm going to get a little cheeky because I'm actually testing. Well, I don't think Chat's doing a good job of acting like it's MrBeast. But if it were MrBeast or the other person I'm thinking here, Jimmy O'Brien from John Boy Media, all the hints we have about the company would fit either of them. I mean, I am thinking in the vein of YouTubers. So I suppose, like, could it be Joe Rogan? No, I don't think that, like, what we know about this fits Rogan. Could it be Theo Vaughn? I don't think what we know about this fits Theo Vaughn. Could it be Kevin Hart? No, I don't think that that's a media. He primarily monetizes through partnerships, not audience. So, and maybe I just am not familiar with Kevin Hart's game. I don't know. But I don't know. I think, those are my top two candidates. Okay, that's fair. And honestly, that's one of the reasons I asked, because I don't think our audience would buy just anything. So remember, I told him, like, just sell the most expensive thing with the highest margins if they'll buy anything from you then, right? Like, basically, I said, hey, I don't really think about audience portability in terms of, like, will they buy anything you sell? And he said, well, they have bought a bunch of different stuff that we never thought we could sell them. So I'm saying, okay, well, fine. The answer is simple. Just sell them the most expensive thing with the highest margin. I'm basically testing the limits of his belief, right? It's not a matter of whether your audience is portable across different types of products. It's a matter of how portable. It's not a binary, it's a continuum. So I'm testing the limits of where he believes portability is on the continuum, right? Like, how many different kinds of things will they buy? Honestly, that's one of the reasons I asked, because I don't think our audience would buy just anything. If they would, we'd have done exactly what you said. We'd sell a $200,000 mastermind or a private equity fund or luxury real estate or some high-ticket nonsense. Okay, interesting nonsense. He said high-ticket nonsense. That does kind of jive with, like, a consumer company or a consumer entertainment creator. I think you're closer to the truth when you talk about audience relevance. Our audience comes to us primarily for entertainment. That matters. The products that have worked best for us have generally been adjacent to that relationship. So products that work with an entertainment relationship. So because he didn't ask a question, this is great. This actually opens the door for me to ask a question. So I'm not going to use a mirror. Okay, I guess the mystery interviewer is typing. I don't know if the mystery interviewer heard that he didn't ask a question and decided to ask a question or not. So I guess I'll give him a second. He stopped typing. I'm going to ask a question. This is good. So anytime I'm in an interview, I want to get to this point where I get them to not ask a question. And I'm taking a long time. In a real interview, it would start asking a question, right? If I sat there quietly. But I want any interviewer, I almost always want them to get them to a point where they're not asking a question, where they're just, like, responding to me or having a conversation, which is oftentimes why I'll kind of challenge them, because I want them to, like, say what they think, because that only gives an advantage to me. If I understand how they think and what they think, that only gives an advantage to me in terms of knowing, like, well, what do they want to hear from me if I want to get this job, right? And also, is that true? Do I actually believe that, right? All right, so I guess I don't necessarily know what you're looking for in somebody who does growth still. And I know you said you were being purposely ambiguous about that, which is fine. But maybe let me just ask, like, a more specific question and say, can you, from a really simple, like, channel and like mechanism perspective, break down how your audience grows? Like, for example, is it that you post entertaining content on YouTube and your primary audience growth comes from YouTube or on Instagram or on TikTok or something like that? Like, can you kind of break down your primary channel for me? And can you tell me, like, are you using, like, paid media to grow? Are you using organic? Is it mostly by word of mouth? Like, that would maybe help me give you a better idea of like where I think you should take this. All right. So now I'm like, I've gotten him into the frame of not asking me a question. Okay, this was just quick response. A few years ago, our entire business could have been described in one word, YouTube videos. Today, we'd have to talk about products, distribution, licensing, international markets, physical experiences, streaming, technology, and talent. Technology and talent. Technology and talent. I think that's just the question. Technology and talent as a line of business. The rest of that makes sense, right? So distribution, right? So they do some sort of like distribution deals where they distribute their media on other platforms. They do licensing deals where they put their branding onto products. They're expanding into international markets with their content, or maybe even with their products. They have physical events, experiences that they put on, streaming. So they likely do have some kind of streaming deals, like maybe they work with Prime, or to MrBeast again. Maybe they work with Prime, or they work with like some sports network to stream on there. Technology and talent, I don't understand that as a line of business. I think he's just kind of saying like, yeah, we have to develop technology and hire talent. One question I spend a lot of time thinking about is, how do we create opportunities for other people to become valuable? Creators, operators, personalities, and builders. Okay, interesting. And why is it that you're bringing that up in the context of talking about growth? So again, like this is now a person. Now I've gotten him into a frame of conversing, sharing his thoughts with me. That's great. That's like the frame you want to get people in anytime you're pitching them something or anytime you're interviewing. This allows me to get into the position of asking questions. My goal in any interview is actually to ask more questions than I get asked. Like I want them to leave feeling like they'd been interviewed, but not feeling like I Uno reverse card them, but to leave feeling like, oh yeah, like that was a really good conversation. Like I almost want them to leave feeling like they were able to get stuff off of their chest to me, right? So again, you want to be memorable. And the main thing is that people need to trust you, right? This is an interview environment. People need to trust you. In order to trust you, they have to like kind of believe you are or can do what you say you can do. One of the best ways to show that is by showing that you're very thoughtful. And one of the best ways to show that you're very thoughtful is by asking questions. So asking the right questions without you ever doing any work. Oftentimes, I've found, at least in sales environments, which a job interview is a sales environment, asking the right questions is the best way to make somebody trust you, right? Like they could not see your work at all. They could not know whether you could do the job at all. But you just ask these questions that really make them think, oh, wow, that is a thoughtful question. Or like, oh, yeah, you really have gotten to the crux of the issue with that question, right? Like if they can see that you're like a very good thinker, a very good problem solver, and you show that through the questions you asked. So that's why like in an interview, I always want to get into the position where I'm asking more questions. You don't need 12 different SaaS apps to run a D2C brand. I lead marketing strategy for 10 brands doing $250 million in total revenue. And here are the 8 apps I'd use to build an 8-figure brand. I guarantee one of these is going to surprise you. First up, Shopify for obvious reasons. That's where your store lives. Second, Attentive for email and SMS. Third, Gorgeous or something similar for customer service. Fourth, Canva for photo and video editing. Fifth, Replo or Gem Pages or something similar for custom landing pages. Personally, I like Replo. Bart likes Gem Pages. Sixth, IntelliGems for pricing and offer testing. 7, Social Snowball to run your affiliate programs. And 8, Redo. This is the surprising one. They do a lot of stuff for you. They optimize your checkout so you're making the most possible money from like what you're charging for shipping. They optimize your cross sells after the purchase. They optimize returns so that you're not losing as much money on refunds. One more tool that I would use, a bonus tool, if you will, a 9th tool, a paid version of either Manus or Claude to create agents and streamline your workflow. These are the 9 tools that you need. You don't need anything else. And honestly, if you're starting out, if you're not an 8-figure brand yet, you could probably get by with like 5 of these. If you want to make more money from your checkout and make more money after somebody purchases, you want to make more profit after somebody purchases from you, you need to check out Redo. So head over to getredo.com to see how they consolidate your entire post-purchase stack into one platform. I consult across 10 e-commerce brands totaling $250 million a year in revenue, and this is the second AI agent I would build to scale to $50K a day without running a single paid ad. All right. So if you've been watching the series, you know last week in part 4, I built an AI agent. So we're going to build another AI agent here. And don't let that scare you. These should be pretty easy to build. This one is going to be one that I don't see any brands doing right now. So I'm really giving you like tactics out of my head that I'm like, somebody needs to implement these. This agent's going to be an influencer outreach machine. And the whole point here is to get collab content. So at this point, we already have our affiliate program set up in Social Snowball. And our agent is going to look through all of our Social Snowball data and identify Instagram creators who are already performing well for us. We're going to look for Instagram creators that are a similar size to our brand page. And we're going to reach out to them and ask if they want to do some collab content. All right. So you want people who are similar size or a little bit bigger. The agent is going to handle the back and forth. It's going to help brainstorm the content, and it's going to work with the content team, even if that's just you, to line up the production schedule so you can create all this collab content at scale with multiple different Instagram creators. Social Snowball is the tool that gives us all the data we need for this agent to work. So you're basically building an agent to go into Social Snowball and do this for you. The collab feature on IG is very powerful. So this is going to put some serious gas on our brand's organic Instagram presence by continuously leveling up these partnerships. So you're at 20K, you're working with people who are 18 to 25K. You get to 25, you're working with people who are 25 to 35K. You see how that snowballs and makes your brand bigger and bigger and makes it so you can partner with bigger and bigger Instagram collaborators. If you want to see an example of this, you can check out the brand that I run marketing for, Royo. It's at Eat Royo on Instagram. You can see that all of our organic content is collab content. We basically only collaborate with recipe creators, and that's our whole organic Instagram presence. And it drives a lot of views, and it gives us a lot of warm traffic to retarget with meta ads. If you're not already running an affiliate program using Social Snowball, you should be. So head over to socialsnowball.io and tell them we sent you. All right, let's get back to it. Okay, so interesting. Why is it that you're bringing that up in the context of growth? And he said, because I don't think growth is the thing we're actually discussing. I think growth is the symptom. The symptom, okay. He folds his hands. If I put 10 opportunities in front of you, launch a new consumer product, open a physical entertainment venue, build a software platform, acquire another media company, start a creator incubator, expand internationally, develop a streaming property, launch a subscription business, build a live touring experience, enter a completely new category, and all 10 are viable, how do you decide which one deserves the next 5 years of the company's attention? I am thinking more and more that this might be MrBeast. It could be like Dude Perfect, though, as well. That would be like that sort of fits here as well. How do you decide which one deserves the next 5 years of the company's attention? Well, are there any people in this company whose opinion of the company matters other than you? He's going to give me, that was not the right question. He's going to say like, yeah, all of our employees, I care what all of our employees think and stuff like that. That's not what I meant. I basically meant, are there any other key stakeholders? Or is it like, what I'm trying to get to here is like, is this company, like, this is your company. Should this company be meant to serve you? Because what he's saying is like, which one of those should get the next 5 years of attention? And I'm like, well, whichever one is going to serve whatever you want. What do you want? Do you want to have the largest like number of reach possible? Do you want to make the most money possible? What is that? Okay. No, there are a lot of people whose opinions matter. Customers, partners, employees, operators, product leaders, creative leaders, retail partners, platform partners, investors, future talent, and increasingly people who have never watched our content. Yeah, of course, everybody's opinion matters. So I guess you should probably just ask everyone in the world what ones of those things you should do, and you should do that one. And whichever one people say the most, you should do that one, because sounds like everybody in the world's opinions of this company matters. Again, I'm being cheeky. I'm testing the limits of his belief, right? So I'm just using a lot of the same mechanisms that get him on the like, he's not asking questions anymore. I'm saying him. It could be a her. Ooh, if it were a female, who would it be? Call her that. No, it wouldn't be Alex Cooper. Mel Robbins. He pauses for a beat. Since you spent most of this interview trying to understand the company rather than impress me, I'll give you one final piece of information. I started this company before I was old enough to rent a car, so it's MrBeast. It's Jimmy. Most people still know us for videos. One of the fastest growing business sells chocolate. And I spend more time thinking about businesses we'll build 10 years from now than videos we publish next month. Great. Yeah. So it's the MrBeast company. All right. And I don't know which subsidiary of the MrBeast company I'm interviewing for, but like, okay, that's great, but you didn't really address my response to your response. You're saying essentially that a lot of people's opinions matter, but you're trying to ask me a question that is, which one of these things should I focus on? And the answer to that question is like, well, that depends on what your goal is. So in order to know which goals matter to a company, I need to know which people's matter to the company. Like, do the customers' goals matter to us? Does your goals matter to us? Like, what do you want this company to be? And does what anybody else wants this company to be matter? Or is it really just what you want this company to be that matters? So he said 10 years ago, the goal was simple: get people to watch. 5 years ago, the goal was get more people to watch. Today, that's not the goal. If anything, we're better at getting attention than we are at fully utilizing it. Think you've probably figured out who you're talking to. So I'll ask one final thing before we wrap. Given that goal, what's the single biggest thing you think I'm getting right? And what's the single biggest thing you think single biggest mistake you think I'm most likely to make? You didn't really tell me the goal. Did I miss that? If anything, we're getting better at attention. You didn't tell me the goal. That, I don't think I would have responded to the actual MrBeast that way, but I also just find it implausible that he would have said, 10 years ago, it was this, 5 years ago, today, that's not the goal, not said the goal, and then been like, given that goal, what should I focus on? I just find it implausible that he would have said that. So now I'm just replying to ChatGPT and being like, hey, you forgot to say the goal. All right. So it's Jimmy. What is ahead of growth for MrBeast? I don't know if it's a sub organization, but the goal is build the most valuable entertainment company in the world. Yeah, I'm going to do this. How do you define valuable? Valuation? So the thing is, again, like I think, yes, Jimmy shrugs. That's the honest answer. Not the biggest YouTube channel, not the biggest creator brand, not the most watched content, not the most followers, not the most valuable entertainment company. Okay. So if I were to guess, obviously I know a lot about you. I think that you feel like you're a master of getting attention because you have been more of a master of getting attention than anybody else in the world so far, probably, right? But I think that probably the biggest criticism of you that you don't take lightly from some of your friends that are maybe a little bit quote unquote better at business is that you have this large audience that you have monetized in the worst way. You've essentially monetized it on like low margin, low value products. And like, you know, that's kind of the weakness in your business is your monetization more than your growth. I think that's an interesting frame if I'm right about that, because you're interviewing me to be your director of growth. So I guess I wonder what you want out of a director of growth. If we're looking to build the most valuable entertainment company, I suppose that I think I can answer your question, but before I do, will you actually answer my question of like, why are you interviewing a director of growth if I'm correct that you believe that like the way that you monetize is actually your biggest problem? So basically I'm sort of making my stand and saying, this is my opinion. And this is another thing you can do to build trust. What I'm doing right now is very risky. All right. At the MrBeast company, I'm going to be up against people who are far more qualified than I am for this job. I am one of the most qualified marketers that you will find in terms of like selling stuff on the internet to consumers. For this particular job, I would probably be like a leadoff hitter. I'd be the guy bunting, a sacrifice to second base. Like I am not a heavy hitter for applying for the director of growth job at this particular company. You would have like people with way more impressive resumes than me. So what I'm doing here, knowing the company that I'm interviewing at, knowing that I've already established my ability to like ask thoughtful questions, knowing that I've already established that I'm memorable, is I'm doing one more thing that like is risky, but like in order for me to get this job, I probably have to take some risk. And that thing is that I am saying, here's what I think you're thinking. And what I'm going to attempt to do now is I'm going to attempt to describe your problem more clearly than you've thought it in your head. If I can do that, I become very memorable. I become like I'd probably become the pole position candidate for the job. Good read, partly right. All right. So it'd have been awesome if it was like, damn, that was pretty smart, man. We're not hiring growth because we need more viewers. We're hiring growth because attention, products, talent, and monetization are no longer separate systems. Last question for all the marbles. Okay, so we got to wrap up here, but I got one more question for you. Last question for all the marbles. Again, just a horrible job of mimicking the way MrBeast would talk. We have one more question. I gotta wrap up. I gotta go hop in a coffin and go deeper under the sea than anything has ever been for 30 days for a YouTube video. But before we do that, let me ask you one more question here. If you inherited Beast Industries tomorrow, what's the first thing you'd start doing? Well, I'm going to answer 3 questions for you because you asked me a couple questions before that I think deserve an answer, and I'll answer this question as well. Before you ask me, what do I think you're doing well, and what do I see as the biggest mistake that you could possibly make? I think the thing you're doing well is really obvious, right? Like you're very good at getting attention. You're very good at YouTube. That is it. Like if I were to simplify it, I think some people would say like good at getting attention organically, whatever. Like, no, you're just really freaking good at YouTube. That's what you're good at, right? So my question is, why are you not just trying to do more of what has already worked? Why are you not trying to get better at what has already worked? Why are you not trying to do new concepts on YouTube? Why is your headspace in this space of, I don't think YouTube, I don't think, I'm not thinking so much about that. I'm thinking more about how I monetize. To me, I think that, the question of what are you good at and what is your biggest potential mistake is the same question. Because if you look at your views over the past 2 months, I'm sure you're aware of what's been going on. The past 2-3 months, you used to fairly consistently have a baseline of 80 million to 150 million views. And I'm sure you're aware that over the last few months, you've had several videos that have had 50 million, 40 million, 30 million views. This isn't something you're unaware of, but you don't seem concerned with it. And I think that's the biggest mistake you could make is basically, Jimmy the businessman instead of Jimmy the YouTuber, Jimmy the entertainer, right? And I get that you as a person evolve. But before, when you asked me like, what is the most what's the thing that should get the company's attention? I'm like, well, the company's Jimmy, man. Let's just be honest about it. And if Jimmy's evolving, then we might have to evolve. But the best thing we could do to continue to grow the company and have the highest valued entertainment company of all time is probably just get more people watching. Get more people watching more consistently. Focus on the views and the rest will follow. And it's a pretty simple answer. And I don't know if other people are giving you more complicated answers that you like more. But I think, hopefully, even if I don't get this job, that this is the answer that is memorable to you, right? And that you don't kind of like lose your way here, because I think that's your biggest potential landmine. If I inherited Beast Industries tomorrow, what's the first thing I'd start doing? I think I've already answered the question. If I inherited Beast Industries and Jimmy was no longer part of it, then we do have a bit of a shell of a company here. But if I inherited Beast Industries tomorrow and I had a magic wand that could make it so that Jimmy Donaldson would do whatever I said and he would be happy about it, then I would say we have to focus on making as many YouTube videos as possible that are the best YouTube videos possible. We have to focus on innovating. What is the YouTube video nobody else could ever make? What's the YouTube video nobody else would ever think of? That's what we have to focus on. And if we've gotten away from that, we got to get back to it. One more thing. If you're running an e-commerce brand right now, doing somewhere between 1 million and 10 million, and you're stuck on something specific, whether it's your margins or your ad spend, your team structure, whatever it is, I do a limited number of consulting calls. It's just you and me going through your numbers and figuring out what to fix. There's a link in the description if you want to see if it's a fit. So again, I did a thing there where, knowing that I am maybe one of the least qualified candidates for this job, I did a thing there where I tried to read him first. So I tried to describe the problem in your brain, the problem you've been wrestling with it. I call it people's shower problem. Can I hone in on people's shower problem, right? What's the problem in their brain that like they've been thinking about in the shower where they're like, oh, what if I tried this? You know what I mean? Or when they're out walking the dog or whatever. Or like when they get distracted when they're supposed to be they're supposed to be paying attention to their 6-year-old's soccer game. Those kids are out there playing bunch ball, kicking each other in the shins, and they're thinking about some other thing. Like, what is that thing that they're thinking about? If I can hone in on that, describe it in more clearer terms than they've been able to come up with in their brain, that's like, again, makes me very memorable. And it brings me from a candidate that has one of the worst resumes to one of the most qualified candidates based on their like feelings about me and their level of trust in me. This guy, I trust this guy to do a good job because he asked thoughtful questions. He had a conversation with me instead of having an interview with me. And he recognized the problem within minutes that I've been wrestling with for months, right? And then I did a similar thing with my last answer where I said like, hey man, I'm going to tell you something you might not want to hear. And that might mean I don't get the job, but like, this is a once in a lifetime chance for me to give my opinion to Jimmy Donaldson and he might actually listen to it. So here it is. And hopefully this sticks with you. All right, let's see what he said. Honestly, that's one of the most interesting answers I've gotten, which is crazy. I think a ton of people would give that answer, but maybe that's just, I think, different. I don't know. You're basically saying don't abandon the engine that built the empire. That's fair. And for the record, I don't think YouTube is the problem. I think that's still the superpower. The reason I'm interviewing for growth isn't because I want someone to replace YouTube. It's because I want someone to make every great video do more work. A video should sell more products. A video should recruit talent. A video should launch brands. A video should create opportunities, not just get views. All right, we've covered strategy, growth, monetization, audience portability, founder dependency. I think I understand how you think. Is there anything else you'd want me to know before we make a decision? Yeah, without any question, you're not really opening up for questions, which is fine because it sounds like you got to go. But I think that the thing that I would want you to know before you make a decision is, I don't know. I've consulted with a lot of companies. I took like 1,000 consulting calls in a year, like in 2024. And the biggest mistake I see when people hire is that they aren't actually that clear on what success looks like in a job, right? So, what you haven't told me here is like, if I were to observe it objectively, see it with my eyes, what does a successful director of growth look like? The only things I can see with my eyes, what does that look like? If you can't kind of break down this role's success to that level, I do think that could be one of the bigger dangers in this hire. And I think that, you might hire based on vibes, but no matter who you hire, even if it's like the best possible person, if they don't have this clear picture of like, here's exactly what success looks like. And you know this because you know Alex Ramosi and you know that he talks about this. If they don't have this very clear picture of like objectively in terms I can observe with my eyes, what does success look like, then they're pretty doomed to fail. I've seen a lot of really, really good team members at a lot of good brands fail because the founder or the hirer, the person hiring them, wasn't clear on what they needed. And what I'm sensing from you is like this tension. You've described it as tension, that you're like unclear on what you need, right? You're like, it's something, we're not monetizing right, or we're not doing something right. Like, and so I would say that like maybe before you make the hire at all or make a decision at all, like I would want you to know that that's the biggest issue I see with like hiring somebody and then it not working out. So if you want this hire to work out, I would think about that. So, but let me break this down. All right. So this is definitely MrBeast. Yeah, he confirmed it's Beast Industries. So goal number 1 achieved. I did figure out who I was talking to, though. ChatGPT basically gave it away at one point. Though I think I'd pretty much honed in on it before that. All right. I'm gonna give myself, in hindsight, I'm gonna give myself the credit for getting that one. Goal number 2, we don't know. Let's see what he says. Let's like ask, maybe like we do a little jig here where we say, hey, honestly, does the candidate get the job? If there were someone behind the scenes, helping guide ChatGPT here, maybe that's what they ask right now. I don't know. But before we even do that, I want to know what you guys think. If you watched this video and you saw the breakdown, hopefully this was helpful to you. I really am focused on the marketing roles, but like if you're a hirer, if you're a founder, hopefully this was helpful to you. If you're somebody who does sales, hopefully this is helpful to you. If you're someone who interviews for jobs ever, hopefully this was helpful to you. And if you're a marketer, hopefully it was helpful to you. That's the goal here, right? Like that's the goal at the checkout. So I think that, I'm going to put way more weight into what the comments say. If you were asking me, if somebody asked me, hey, John, how'd you think your interview went? After this, I'd be like, I don't know. I think it went about as good. I think if I'm meant to work at the MrBeast organization, that was my best shot. I think I took some home run swings and they, and either they'll land or they won't. But that's what I would say about myself. And it says here, what's funny? You basically spent an hour saying, cool, but what problem are you actually trying to solve? That's a useful person. And you're right about one thing in particular. If I can't clearly define success for the role, then eventually the role fails, not because the person is bad, but because the mission is unclear. And this is true. Like ChatGPT was way more dodgy than any hirer would ever be. Like I asked a lot of like, what problem are you trying to solve questions? And like, it would just dodge the question really. Now, normally this is where I'd say, congratulations, you're hired, but that would make a terrible video. Okay, so ChatGPT knows what we're up to here. Giant monitor behind him lights up. Okay, we're in the whole time we've been in a MrBeast video? That's true. Maybe I should reread the intro like a MrBeast video. I'm going to do... If you're this deep into the video, a little fourth wall break. After this, I'm going to reread the intro like a MrBeast video. A giant monitor behind him lights up. Candidate evaluation, strategic thinking, 9 out of 10. Pushes back on assumptions, 10 out of 10. Founder psychology, 9 out of 10. Growth knowledge, 8 out of 10. Willingness to disagree, 10 out of 10. Ability to give a straight answer to a question, 4 out of 10. To be fair, that questions weren't straight. Can't give a straight answer to a gay question is what I always say. Jimmy points at the last one. You inherited that score from me. The monitor changes. Final verdict. What is it? I need the comments to help me decide. Final verdict. Hop in the comments and let us know if you think we should hire John for this role. See you all next time in the checkout.